Live?
Yeah. Shoot's frozen.
Good morning. I could almost say good morning to you by name. We have a small crowd this morning for an outdoor service, but we have people who are watching this streaming live. So I want to say good morning and welcome to everybody. Whether you're here in person, sitting in the comfortable shade, it's a beautiful day, and I'm hoping that we can make this an annual tradition, having an outdoor service at this time of the year. So I'm trying to come up with a name for this service, and so we'll be working on it, and you'll help me figure it out. The best I can do is the Outdoor Spruce Up Ice Cream Social Sunday. And so we'll work on getting just a spiffy name for it. But it's a time for us to worship. We worship all the time in that sanctuary, the beautiful sanctuary over there. But today, our worship service is outdoors, under the shade of the white oak trees that have been here for so long, so many years. Today, we're going to have a special service where we honor the outdoors by being in the outdoors, by working in the outdoors, and by having some ice cream and blackberry lemonade together. So thank you for coming today to this service. Thank you for tuning in, and let's go. Let's do it. Thank you.
Our opening hymn is 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Feel free to sing this in the round with us if you like. Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshiper, lover of thee. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are. Come, come, whoever you are. Wonder, worshiper, lover of thee. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come.
Nice. John Muir is quoted as saying, "The clearest way into the universe is through a forest wilderness." Let us remember that as we say our affirmation. Love is our doctrine. Compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration. Build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world. Well, even though we are outside, we still light a chalice or 3 every week. Reverend Rick is going to help us. Today we're only going to be lighting 1 chalice to represent 3 things. It represents us, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem, and all of its members and friends. It also represents our Unitarian Partner Church in Chimanfalva, Transylvania, Romania, who these past 18 months have actually spent more services outside than we have. So we are following their example. And it also represents the children and youth in religious education and in the world at large. Robert Louis Stevenson. It is not so much for its beauty that the forest makes a claim upon men's hearts, as for that subtle something, that quality of air from old trees that so wonderfully changes and renews a weary spirit. Please join us in seeing the flame into life.
Rise up, O flame, rise, rise like glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
There is a trend, perhaps you've heard of it, called forest bathing. You go out into a forest and just experience it. Experience it with all your senses. Take a breath in and smell the pine, the earth. Smell the green. Stop a moment and listen. Yes, you listen to the traffic, but listen deeper to the birds overhead, the crackle beneath your feet, the silence. Look up and down and all around you. See the sky peeking up from above. Look at the majestic trees. Notice all that is on the ground. If you feel adventurous, take off your shoes and feel the ground beneath your feet. Feel the rough bark with your hands. Notice the light, feathery feel of the ferns. Just be in the presence of the forest for a while. Feel the connection. Feel the peace. Feel the sense of awe. Many people in our country have to travel far to find these forests. We're lucky to live in an area that has so many opportunities for forest bathing. Even right here in our own backyard.
How many of you remember what it was like last Labor Day here? It was dreadful, dreadful. That time of year, around Labor Day last year, the air quality here in Salem was the worst in the entire world. Due to the wildfire smoke that was blown down from the Santiam Canyon by this extraordinary wind that spread the fires. It was 70, 80 mile-an-hour winds. It was really just an unusual, terrible situation. And the air was so bad outdoors, we had to be indoors. And I love being outdoors. I love taking walks. And to be trapped indoors was just a dreadful fate. Toxic ash was settled on everything. It was a gloomy, tragic mess. This on top of everything else that was rocking our world, like the pandemic and political instability. And as we near the end, I'm so glad it's a beautiful day. It is a beautiful day. The temperature is just right. But we are nearing the end of the hottest summer on record in Oregon. And that was followed, and before that, it was the driest spring in 90 years. Tom Lansfield just told me a couple of minutes ago. So there can be no doubt that our world is undergoing some alarming changes as a consequence of our extensive, widespread use of fossil fuels since the dawn of the industrial era. The climate, as you know, is heating up because carbon emissions from these fuels end up in the atmosphere, trapping heat from the earth that used to dissipate into the atmosphere, beyond the atmosphere. a lot of alarming evidence right before us. There's a drought across the western United States. The dry underbrush. Look at all the dry underbrush right here. It poses a threat. There's so much of it. There can be what they now call, there's a new term, megafires. Megafires that create their own weather systems. For about a century, our government has sought to prevent this underbrush from catching fire at all, and such fire suppression practices were just the worst thing possible because it only made it worse. Instead of there being periodic wildfires that would clear out the dry underbrush, and it wouldn't kill the trees, it would singe the trunks but not kill them. Instead, now we have the megafires that destroy everything. Trees, animals, people, property, and it leaves behind the wasteland. Not to mention, adding to this, there are invasive beetles and other things that are killing the trees, and it's another consequence of climate change. It's another source of fuel for these fires, which have destroyed entire communities. Native peoples who were here before settlers arrived, they understood that periodic fires were a natural force that could clear out the dry tinder and brush that actually helped the forest thrive. And in our ignorance, we have tried to prevent all fire for the past century, and now there is hell to pay. But we're beginning to pay more attention and pay more respect to this complex ecosystem of which we are a part. We need to learn to look upon this vast ecosystem with humble reverence rather than rapacious greed. Which brings us to this moment. For a number of years, we used to have what we called a sparkle and clean service on Labor Day, indoors. It was a shortened service followed by opportunities for those who wished to join a cleaning party inside the building, or people sometimes wanted to join me for some theological dialogue. So not everybody can get up and move around and clean, and we always want to have something for everyone. So you can join me after today's service for some dialogue if you'd like, or join a cleaning party. But today, after our shortened service, and I'm thinking perhaps in future years, we're going to have these services outdoors, and we're going to work outdoors in recognition that the greatest mess we have to clean up is not indoors, it's outdoors. This mess that we have unwittingly created through our misuse of technology and our arrogant, exploitive ways. Our earth has been greatly wounded. Our lovely spiritual home sits on a piece of land that's seen its share of abuse. When we came to build here, the property was overgrown with, they were native blackberries, I think. George Struble pointed that out to me yesterday, but they were definitely sharp and hard to deal with. And there were many invasive plants. I couldn't take a walk through those woods many years ago without walking out with all these hitchhikers caught on my body. It was not a very pleasant place to be. But now we're beginning to understand that we need to have conscientious care, conscientious stewardship for this piece of land. And so today after the service, if you want to, after you, or maybe before your ice cream, we have ice cream. So we'll have to decide when if you need the ice cream, you energize yourself to work, or if you want it, you can hold off the ice cream if you didn't ask if you've done any work. So this is healing. It's restorative work. And as you work under the shade of the ancient native white oaks, see these white oaks? These have been here since a long time ago, since maybe even before the Civil War, way before we were even here. These native white oaks have been there. And as we're working today, let's be ever more aware of this interconnected web of existence of which we're a part. Know that these trees are carbon captures. They help keep carbon in the soil so it doesn't get into the atmosphere. And by planting trees and by reclaiming the lands lost to desertification, we can begin to reverse the processes that have caused untold harm to diversity on our planet. And so may our efforts today signify for us here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem that we are committed. We are committed to being conscientious stewards of this land, and we will join with others as we address the greatest challenge humankind has yet faced. The challenge of reversing the amount of carbon that ends up in our atmosphere. The challenge of cleaning up the streams and the rivers and the oceans. The challenge of reversing the vast extinction of species. The challenge of reversing the desertification of lands. The challenge of restoring the kelp forests and the coral reefs in the oceans. We need to face the challenge of allowing our precious earth and helping it to heal. Let us learn to unplug from our devices everywhere you go. I have a friend who goes downtown and they like to photograph people, but they try to photograph them when they're not staring at their smartphones, and it's very hard to do. It's very hard to see a block full of people, none of whom is staring at their smartphones. You know, and they're useful devices, but a life spent with your nose buried in a little screen while this is around you is a sin. A sin means you missed it. You missed it. There's something beautiful going on out here. So pull your head out of that little screen and look around. I'm not preaching to you, you're the choir, but you know what I'm talking about. It's good for us to unplug from our devices and go outdoors and plug into something more transcendent and glorious and spiritually healing, like the forest back. Let's learn the subtle ways that we can work in harmony with the earth to restore our common health. Hitherto, we haven't done such a good job. We've acted as though we're different. We're above nature, and we can just do with it whatever. No, we're not above nature. We're part of nature, as much as any being, high or low. There's so much more that we need to more fully understand and appreciate our home. We have wonderful people in our congregation that can help us make those explorations as we consider our call to this sacred work. If you'll hand me that note, I can see what I'm saying. John? Thank you, John. And the world is trying to tell us that the service should end pretty quickly. They're blowing my notes off the stand. And I take that as a sign that we're supposed to get through this. So even as we must grieve for all that has been lost, let us lift our spirits with never-failing hope. Because we can do. Humankind has gotten, we're all talking about how terrible we are, how terrible we are. We're not terrible. We're wonderful. We can do many wonderful things to turn this around. This is the generation, this is the time to turn it around and begin to watch the healing of our earth. And so I'd like to invite you again into just a quiet meditation and just welcome yourself home to this moment. Welcome yourself home to this earth, this beautiful, beautiful earth, our home, the home of those who came before us, and it will be the home of those who come after us. And we are the stewards today. Stewards of this institute, the stewards of this land. Let us be faithful in our stewardship of all that comes within our reign. Amen.
I'm going to rekindle our flame. It never goes out, right? I think I'm going to. No, I think I'm out. There we go. See if it will continue in the arm. So now's the time for generosity. For September, the Share the Plate recipient is CASA. CASA works to improve the lives of Latino immigrants, their families in Oregon, through advocacy, coalition building, and leadership development. Also, please continue to regular support of the Marion Folk Food Shed. You can do so by visiting our website or sending checks to UUCS. And I rekindled the flame because we want to attempt to light the social justice candle that Rick is going to grab. Because we always want to remember the light and justice that we bring into the world as part of our faith. And as we extinguish the chalice, let us remember and be grateful for the beauty of nature that surrounds us. Although I would like this bee to go. Okay, we have a few people here today that are going to help us weed and trim. So those of you who are at home, we are assuming that you, of course, are going to go out into your backyard and do the same for your backyard, and we appreciate that. So here is the plan for today. First of all, we luckily have some people from the landscaping committee here, including Alan Holland, Ira C., and Tom Mansfield, and looks like pretty other people. So be sure, and if you have any questions, you can connect with them, which is great. Alan Holland very kindly made up a list of things that could be done, and I have that list. So after the service, come and see me, and I can show you what he put together. Margaret and Greg Briggs are going to be helping with the ice cream and lemonade, and they have set up, or are going to set up, that around the corner in the little Buddha patio, where sometime we will set up the Buddha, right, and have a ceremony on that. I know I'm supposed to make friends with this bee, but I'm feeling uncomfortable doing that, but I hope it does what it needs to do. Yes, absolutely. Next slide is about registration and our upcoming services. We are unfortunately having to pause in-person services. We will continue to be looking at that weekly. And as hopefully hospitalizations go down to less than 50 people in Marion County, and instances of COVID go down, we will be able to reconvene in person. Nevertheless, because of our trusted production team, we are able to still do live streaming. And so please watch with that, which is cool, absolutely. And speaking of which, I will speak about in a second. Okay, never mind. So I want to follow the slides if people are watching at home. So, be on the lookout for when we can be in person again. Meanwhile, we do have Zoom fellowship happening at noon, including today. Look at the website for that, which is nice. Next slide I want to talk about is Water Communion, which is next Sunday. So please send in a picture of water like you did last year, with your name and one sentence of why this water is meaningful to you. What is this significance? This year we're asking that you send it to production team, that's production team, one word, at uusalem.org. The deadline is Tuesday, September 7th. So go do it. Go do it now. Lorianne, do we have an estimate on how many pictures we have so far? 20. Whoa. Very cool. All right. Let's keep it coming. Next slide simply talks about news of the community. For the next 5 Sundays, starting next Sunday, there is going to be a focus on shared ministry. Reverend Rick will be talking more about this, but it's the idea, much like even today, here we are today, taking care of our land. This is part of our shared ministry. And so what's going to happen is that for the next 5 weeks, different teams are going to stand up and give a 1-minute representation of just who they are, in case you don't know, and ways that you can engage and contact information. So be on the lookout for that. That's exciting. And then, also, what was listed behind in the news of the community is that behind the chalice this month, we are looking at different people that are working for the Sunday services. And this month, the person that we're looking at is Becky Harrison, who helps with our sound production. And that is it. Thank you.
Our closing hymn is number 1018 in the teal hymnal, which you don't have with you. But I'm sure you'll recognize Come and Go With Me. And we'll just, there we go. Come and go. Wait, haha, that's the wrong song. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land when I'm bound, when I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land when I'm bound. Justice, there'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land when I'm bound, when I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land when I'm bound. Singing, there'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land when I'm bound, when I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land when I'm bound.
Yay. Now please join all of us, those behind the camera and those here in person, as we say our closing words. May faith in the spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come.